South Africa's finance minister is expected to announce a plan to take on part of power utility Eskom's mammoth debts in a midterm budget today, Wednesday, although analysts say the legally complex transfer will take time to execute. State-owned Eskom has been mired in financial crisis for years, roughly 400 billion rand in debt it cannot afford to service. It has required recurring government bailouts that have placed public finances under budget strain, with officials grappling with different ways to solve the problem. Oluwatomi Muyiwa, who's an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company Limited, joins us to talk about cocoa and electricity and Ivory Coast and Ghana. But let's start in South Africa. Eskom. For those that don't know, if it's possible anyone exists that doesn't know, how do we get here with Eskom, Muyiwa?
Thank you very much, Reuters. I think what I would like to say is that part of the problems identified with or associated with public-owned enterprise is the fact that there is mismanagement, there is lack of accountability, and also pricing, and all of these are actually a problem facing Eskom currently, because anybody who just feel they can do what they like to do, and probably the government is just going to take care of whatever comes out from that. And like I said about pricing, I think concerning pricing, looking at, I think Eskom asked for about 20% increase in tariff earlier this year, but they were allowed to increase it by 10%, and so as a result of that, they are not able to gain, adequate profit to be able to cover their debt expense, and so that is actually, increasing the price, increasing the debt of Eskom.
It's really, really tough to be trying to raise prices on your everyday South African, a nation where I think they just technically were in a technical recession or so not too long ago. Right, they've had the KwaZulu-Natal floods, you've had the riots, you've had the struggling economy, COVID, and so on and so forth, corruption charges facing the president, Ramaphosa. So anyway, you add all this, the debt, what kind of impact has it had on the industry? Actually, when a country, an industry has debt, is not necessarily the problem, but its ability to actually finance that debt. Yeah. And so that's the problem that the industry is actually facing at the moment, because I think according to its financial reports, the last financial report it had, it was, we saw that about, I think, only 16% of its interest can only be paid by its total operating profit. And so that's really bad. You can't survive with that. It's in a debt trap at the moment. Yeah. It has to borrow to be able to pay its debt. Right. And at that moment, it will not be able to finance its equipment, maintenance on its equipment. Yeah. And so that has actually limited its capacity to generate electricity. And that's why we've been seeing the power outage in South Africa. We had an interview with an analyst in South Africa, I think it was a week ago, and he couldn't come on. He was like, I'm sorry, we have a power outage and there's no power. Yes, it was virtually. That's what we're seeing at the moment. I feel like this next question, you can ask it about Nigeria. The outlook for economic growth for South Africa, considering their power issues.
Yes, so at the moment, first of all, I would like to say that it will be very difficult for the government to be to finance this debt, because they are still, finding a way around it, because they are at the moment they are with adopting the conservative fiscal policy. Yeah. They're trying to reduce their debt and all of that. So it's really going to be difficult, and that would have a long-term impact on the economic growth, because at the moment this power outage has actually limited industrial growth. And so in the large, because inflation, if you see South African inflation, has been largely attributed to increase in fuel, because of the people are relying on fuel, on generators and all of that. So that will actually limit growth even in the long run, if nothing is done with this debt crisis and all of that.
Yeah. Let's quickly jump over to cocoa. We all like chocolates. Abidjan and Accra, why are they demanding more of their premiums for their chocolates from international
Yes. Yeah. So, okay, I would like to point out the fact that, you know, this association, it's something like OPEC, right?
Yeah, cocoa cartel.
Yes. So chocolate, which is a byproduct of cocoa, it's actually price elastic. What I mean by that is that an increase in the price of chocolates you can decide not to, especially considering the inflationary pressures. You can just decide to, you know, let go of it and, you know, have to settle the needful. So because of that, it's actually very difficult to determine, to control pricing. And that's what we've been seeing with the multinational companies. They've found it difficult to actually pass this cost to consumers. And considering the fact that the highest consumer of cocoa, it's the UK, Germany, the Europe, right? And you know how they have been facing much inflationary pressures. That is actually biting into the pocket of most consumers. And so that has actually, you know, limited their ability to pass that cost. And so it's also telling on, and that's why they are trying to say that, oh, let's find a way to actually, you know, go about this thing. This pricing mechanism is really, really very difficult for them to pay and all of that. So that's the problem we are seeing right now. Compared to crude oil, which can be stored, you know, for a long time, is not subject to spoilage, you know, so you can decide to exert your negotiation power and all of that. But for cocoa,
it's perishable.
Yes, it is. So it will get to a time where you just have to sell it at the price.
Make losses on your inventory.
So that's what we're saying.
Very, very fascinating, interesting stuff. Oluwatomi Muyiwa, analyst, financial derivatives company. Thanks for talking to us about power in South Africa and chocolates and cocoa in Ghana and Ivory Coast. Appreciate your time.